up, guys? We got UFC Mexico City Moreno versus Erceg full card picks and betting breakdown. And I'm excited to get into this week's card. There are a lot of great matchups. And I do want to know I will be live for the main card starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you guys tune into the Fight Companion. And let's go ahead and get right into it with the first bout of the night being Austin Hubbard versus MarQuel Mederos. And this is an interesting matchup in which I am going with MarQuel Mederos. He is coming off of the win over Landon Quiones where he got tagged early, but he overcame adverse and ended up outstriking, outworking, and outdamaging a Landon Quiones and winning it via unanimous decision. And then you have the win versus Izakov where he landed a picture-perfect knee up the middle. So he is a very highly skilled and highly touted prospect on the rise that has a very high fight IQ. So I gotta side with the side of MarQuel Mederos. I really feel like he's going to be the better striker. He's going to be more explosive. He's going to be quicker. He's got the craftier combinations. He's got the quicker hands. He's got the power to knock out Austin Hubbard. Even though Austin Hubbard is a very tough, durable opponent, MarQuel Mederos is known to have some really good counter-striking abilities and be able to sit down his opponent. Though I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be MarQuel Mederos being very technically sound in the striking, timing some timely takedowns, and getting the better of Austin Hubbard by being the technically better fighter. And I feel like MarQuel Mederos also has a lot more tools in his tool bags. He has the high and low snappy kicks. He has the body shots. He mixes it up really well to the body and to the head. So I gotta favor the side of MarQuel Mederos. Austin Hubbard is going to be looking to basically just out cardio MarQuel Mederos. If MarQuel Mederos lands a big shot and blows his wad early, you could possibly see Austin Hubbard start taking over in the later rounds due to the fact that he puts on a very heavy volume on his opponents, but I just don't see that happening here against MarQuel Mederos. I get a lot of people might side with the Austin Hubbard side because of the fact that he has UFC experience over MarQuel Mederos, but I think if we look at skill for skill and tool for tool, MarQuel Mederos has more skill and more tools in his tool bag, so that is why I'm siding with MarQuel Mederos over Austin Hubbard. Austin Hubbard also tends to throw these looping, sluggish shots where MarQuel Mederos is quicker and straight to the target and more accurate. So that is why I'm going with MarQuel Mederos. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight. With Austin Hubbard sitting at a plus 161, MarQuel Mederos sitting at a negative 186. I like MarQuel Mederos. Like I said, I think he's more skilled. He also has more options in terms of striking with his legs, with his feet. He also has grappling to fall back on if he has any trouble in the striking department against Austin Hubbard. But I don't see him having any trouble in the striking department. I think he's going to be able to technically pick apart Austin Hubbard and counter-strike him and possibly land some nice big shots, but I think it's going to go the full distance. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 450, over 2.5 sitting at a negative 275. I think this fight goes over, and I think it's going to be MarQuel Mederos walking away with the decision victory. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Jamall Emmers versus Gabriel Miranda. And the pick for me is going to be Jamall Emmers. I mean, though coming off of the loss to Nate Landwehr, he had moments in that fight. He had Nate Landwehr hurt before ultimately getting finished. And then you have the win over Bazooka where he knocked him out. The loss to Jack Jenkins via split decision. And then the win over Ashkabov. I mean, Jamall Emmers is a very talented striker. He knows how to mix up his shots on the feet. He knows how to maintain that distance. He knows how to use that long, stiff jab of his to keep his opponents at bay, which he does have a 3-inch reach advantage here. So he does, I believe, in my opinion, have the striking advantage. And he is a very good grappler. Many might not know, but he has a very good defensive grappling skill set. In the fight against Ashkabov, he is a very well-rounded fighter and a very highly skilled grappler with over 10 submission wins. And Emmers was able to fend off the takedowns, keep it on the feet, and outstrike and outwork him. And I feel like something similar is going to happen here against Gabriel Miranda. He's going to use his grappling to defensively keep this on the feet and be able to outstrike and possibly knock out a Gabriel Miranda due to the fact that Gabriel Miranda is chinny. He isn't the best fighter. He leaves his chin up. He doesn't move his head off the center line. He doesn't really bring enough of a striking threat either to really worry about the striking over the grappling side of things. So I feel like Emmers is going to defensively be sound with his grappling, keep this on the feet, and find the knockout shot on a Gabriel Miranda who leaves his chin up in the air and doesn't move his head off the center line. Not to mention he has the loss over Morgan Cháirez where he got counter left hooked. And then the submission over Shane Young, which is mediocre. The loss to BSD where he got starched. So, I mean, Gabriel Miranda is somebody who is chinny, who mainly just relies on his grappling to overcome his opponent, but I don't think that it's going to work here against Jamall Emmers, who has really good defensive grappling and even better striking. And let's go ahead and look at the odds on this fight. With Jamall Emmers sitting at a negative 312, Gabriel Miranda sitting at a plus 262. I like Jamall Emmers. I really think that he's going to be able to outstrike and knock out a Gabriel Miranda. Over 2.5 sitting at a plus 143. Under 2.5 sitting at a negative 173. I like the under 2.5. I think that he's going to finish Gabriel Miranda. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Rafa García versus Vinc Pichel. And the pick for me is Rafa García. I mean, you got to know it. It's definitely got to be Rafa García. You can't go with the 42-year-old in Vinc Pichel. Vinc Pichel is coming to the later end of his career. He hasn't been looking the best. He's coming off of 2 decision losses to Bofim and Mark Madsen, where he had moments in both of them, but ultimately he got dominated and didn't look the best. Ultimately, he's an inactive fighter that hasn't fought in 10 months, and then before that had a huge layoff in between 10 months and 2 years. So basically a 2-year layoff previously before that. I mean, dude, Vinc Pichel is going to get worked. I think that Rafa García is going to possibly even submit a Vinc Pichel. I think it's more than likely to be a decision, but I do see a path where Rafa García could submit a Vinc Pichel because Rafa is super tough. He's super gritty. He's a very clean striker with good counter-striking abilities and nasty inside boxing. Not to mention, that's not even his bread and butter. His bread and butter is the submission game. He has a great grappling game with strong takedowns. He knows how to maintain control of you. He has quick transitions and tricky submissions. So I feel like Rafa García here is going to be able to use that to the best of his ability. He's going to timely takedowns on Vinc Pichel in the mix of his striking. And I feel like he's going to get him down, and he's going to maintain that control, garner that control time, and pepper him with shots from top position. Vinc Pichel, like I said, inactive fighter. He throws looping punches. He's sluggish. And he's just coming to the later end of his career, so I can't pick him. In no way, shape, or form can I pick Vinc Pichel, who is inactive, throws looping punches, and just is coming to the later end of his career at 42. Give me Rafa García via decision, but submission is ultimately live for sure. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Rafa García sitting at a negative 500, Vinc Pichel sitting at a plus 375. The odds are a little bit wide, to be honest. I mean, Rafa García is a very good fighter. He only lost to Grant Dawson as of recently, and Grant Dawson is an absolute monster. We saw that. So, I mean, Rafa García should be able to easily handle Vinc Pichel, seeing as he's inactive, has been out of the game for a while, and is coming to the later end of his career. Though I do think that Rafa García is live for that submission. I will say that. I think he could pull off a submission, but ultimately, I'm going to go with decision. Over 1.5, sitting at a negative 550. Under 1.5, sitting at a plus 350. Over 2.5, sitting at a negative 325. Under 2.5, sitting at a plus 250. I like the overs, and I think it's going to be Rafa García getting the better of Vinc Pichel via decision. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight in what is Julia Polastri versus Lupita Godinez. And the pick for me is gotta be Lupi Godinez. I think that this is a huge step up in competition for Julia Polastri. And though Lupi is coming off of 2 losses, look at the competition that she's facing. Mackenzie Dern, Virna Jandiroba. I mean, those are both top of the top in terms of the women's division. She's not losing to bums. She's not losing to some trash cans. No, she's losing to the best of the best. She has a win over Tabitha Ricci previously before that. Lupi is a very, very great fighter with great striking, with a very high guard, so she's very hard to hit. Not to mention she has very good tight inside boxing, quick hands, clean combinations, and solid grappling to fall back on if she has any trouble in the striking department, which I don't believe she will. So I gotta go with the side of Godinez, given the fact that she has the high guard, she has the great striking, she has the great grappling to fall back on if she has any troubles in the striking department. I think that she's a money call. Not to mention Polastri, her last fight was against Corey McKenna. This is a huge step up in competition from Corey McKenna to Lupi Godinez. And then she lost previously to Knutson before that. I feel like Julia Polastri, though having that McKenna win, and though she's a good prospect, I think this is going to be too much for her. I really do. I think she's going to run into a brick wall in Lupi Godinez. I get that she's a quality striker with solid grappling, but like I said, I feel like this is too big of a step up, and I feel like Lupi's going to be able to tag her on the inside, be able to keep that high guard, block most of her shots, be able to land some timely takedowns in the mix of it as well, and I think she's going to get the better of Julia Polastri. And let's go ahead and look at the odds on this fight for these two women. Lupi sitting at a negative 225. Polastri sitting at a plus 190. I like the odds. I agree with the odds. I think Lupi is going to be able to beat Julia Polastri due to the fact that she's been up against better competition. She showed out against better competition. And I think she's going to show out here against Polastri, who is just an up-and-coming prospect with just only a fight against Knutson and McKenna. I don't believe those equate to somebody like Lupi Godinez. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 900. Under 1.5 sitting at a plus 500. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 575. And under 2.5 sitting at a plus 425. I think it's going to be Lupi Godinez, and I think it's going to be via decision. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Ezequiel Acosta versus Christian Rodriguez. And this is an absolute banger. An absolute banger. This has fight of the night written all over it. I think that Ezequiel Acosta versus Christian Rodriguez is going to be a back and forth tit for tat warfare in which I am choosing Ezequiel Acosta to beat Christian Rodriguez, which may be a surprise to a lot of you guys, but I really think that Costa can beat a Christian Rodriguez. Christian Rodriguez, though having faced a lot of submission-based fighters in Austin Bashi, and then you have Juliana Rosa, Isaac Dolgarian, Cameron Saimon, and then Raul Rojas Jr., I mean, a lot of them were very one-dimensional. Raul Rojas doesn't have the best the best striking. So Christian Rodriguez was able to take advantage of that. Then you have Saimon, where he's a pretty decent, well-rounded fighter, but Christian Rodriguez was able to handle him. Then Isaac Dolgarian, where it was a very, very close fight, where Dolgarian got Christian Rodriguez down a couple of times, and I feel like Costa is a better grappler than Dolgarian. And then the Arosa, where he went up against a veteran and finally got submitted. And then the win over Austin Bashi, where Austin Bashi, again, doesn't really have the greatest striking. He's a very one-dimensional fighter. He was getting absolutely pummeled on the feet. So take it with a grain of salt. I feel like Christian Rodriguez has only faced low-level competition in the sense of he faces only prospects. Plain and simple, he faces only prospects. He's going up against somebody in Melquizael Costa, who came into his UFC debut against Thiago Moises. Yes, he lost via submission, but coming into your debut against Thiago Moises says a lot about you. And then you have the win over Austin Lingo. He got starched by Steve Garcia, but who isn't getting starched by Steve Garcia? He's an absolute monster on the feet. And then you have the win over Nurembekov, and then the win over Andre Fili, where he submitted. He's a submission ace, but not only that, he is a good striker. He's an excellent striker at that. He has very good, nasty high and low kicks. He has crafty combinations. He has quick hands. He mixes it up to the head and to the body very, very well, also mixing it up to the calves. Not to mention, he mixes up his striking with his grappling and can time some timely takedowns. I feel like Costa is a very well-rounded fighter that's going to be able to show the holes in Christian Rodriguez's game and be able to exploit some of the grappling side of things, because Christian Rodriguez in a couple of these fights, Saimon had his back, Raul Rojas at one point had his back, Dolgarian had his back at one point. I mean, at that point, I feel like if Costa gets his back, it's over. There's no getting away from Costa if he has your back. These guys, they have decent to honestly really good jiu-jitsu, but I feel like Costa is just a step ahead of them in the sense that he's faced better competition. He's gotten better time and time again in every single fight, and I feel like he's going to do a fantastic job here against Christian Rodriguez and could possibly find the submission, but I think it's going to be a tit-for-tat war where I think it goes to decision, honestly. Though if Costa gets the back, like I assume he probably will, I think it'll probably end via submission, honestly. And let's go ahead and look at the odds between these two. With Christian Rodriguez sitting at a negative 160, Costa sitting at a plus 140, I like Costa. Like I said, I think he brings a very good well-roundedness to this fight that he's going to be able to mix in the striking with the grappling, find success in both of those. He has those very snappy body kicks, not to mention he could throw it up top and land the head kick on Christian Rodriguez, really hurting him. Whereas Christian Rodriguez is going to be looking to stand on the feet, bang it out, be kind of in close distance, but also not too close to where he gets taken down. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Costa is going to be able to land a takedown. And I think possibly Costa is live to get the submission because Christian Rodriguez has had his back taken one too many times. I get he has stellar scrambles. He's very good at scrambling. But time and time again, he has gotten his back taken, and you cannot be in that position against a Mederos Costa. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 350. Under 1.5 sitting at a plus 250. Under 1.5 or over 2.5 sitting at a negative 200, under 2.5 sitting at a plus 160. I like the overs, but I would be a little bit hesitant on them, seeing as Costa could land a submission finish over Christian Rodriguez. But ultimately, I think the right call is via decision. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Ateba Gautier versus Jose Medina. And the pick has obviously got to be Ateba Gautier. I mean, I get that we have two unproven fighters, to be completely honest. You have Ateba, who is coming off of the knockout over Yeda Naito over in Contender Series, so he really hasn't proven himself too much. Obviously, he has a bunch of knockouts in these regional scenes, but other than that, we still don't really know how good of a grappler he is. Obviously, we know he has really, really good striking. He has devastating knockout power. He is very athletic. He is very mobile with his feet. His footwork looks phenomenal. He does sometimes get overzealous with his striking and does get taken down at times. That is something that is kind of a red flag about him. But other than that, he has the size and length advantage over Jose Medina, not to mention the power and explosive advantage over Jose Medina. So I feel like Ateba Gautier is going to be able to beat Jose Medina. Not to mention Jose Medina is coming off of 2 losses, one to Cháirez, one to Magomed Gaziasulov, who isn't even in the UFC anymore. So, I mean, like I said, you have 2 unproven fighters. Obviously, I wouldn't throw a whole bag on Ateba Gautier or Jose Medina. They're both unproven. Obviously, Jose Medina is a little bit worse. Honestly, his striking is awful. It's kind of mediocre. He throws these looping shots, leaving him open to counters, and I feel like Ateba Gautier is going to be able to counter him and lay him out. I don't see another Carlos Vera situation happening. I think Ateba Gautier is going to go in there. He's going to show that he is the legit prospect, and he's going to knock out Jose Medina. And let's go ahead and look at the odds here, with Jose Medina sitting at a plus 325, Ateba Gautier sitting at a negative 425. I mean, Jose Medina has been in there with some UFC caliber fighters, so him being at plus 325 doesn't really make the most sense, but I will say he throws looping shots, doesn't look the best on the feet, is a little bit wild and chaotic, and probably is going to get countered and knocked out by a Gautier that has an insane reach and an insane striking advantage over Medina. And over 1.5 sitting at a negative 170, under 1.5 sitting at a plus 140. I like the under 2.5 if you can find that. I think it's going to be Gautier landing the knockout shot on Jose Medina, and I think it's going to be a counter left. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Edgar Cháirez versus CJ Vergara. And this is another great matchup, honestly, on this card. And the pick for me is going to be Edgar Cháirez over CJ Vergara. Though, coming off of the loss to Joshua Van, I mean, he had a moment where he landed a spinning elbow or spinning back fist. I don't fully remember, but I'm pretty sure it was a spinning elbow. And it caught Joshua Van clean. I mean, he had a insane couple of combinations that were landing clean on Joshua Van, but Joshua Van is just an animal. I mean, he's in the top 15. He's a savage. He mixes it up to the body really, really well, whereas CJ Vergara is somebody that could apply the pressure, could close the distance, but really doesn't strike to the body. He's mainly a headhunter, kind of lacks with his head movement on the center line. So I feel like Edgar Cháirez, with the dog and the tough and gritty side of him, can be a CJ Vergara, to be completely honest. I mean, his striking, like I said, is very good. He has very quick, clean combinations up the middle. He mixes it up to the head and to the body very, very well. He has the quick calf kicks. He also has a good grappling game with quick transitions and tricky submissions. So I feel like Edgar Cháirez is a very well-rounded fighter, though, like I said, coming off of that loss, he has the win over Daniel Lacerda, where he got the triangle choke, the no contest before that, and then the loss to Tatsu Taira. I mean, he's going up against some really, really good fighters. And he's putting on some good moments in these fights, to be completely honest. Now you put him up against CJ Vergara, who's a big step down in competition, who is on a 2-fight losing streak, that just got knocked out by Tamirov, got lost to Asu Almabayev. Obviously, he's honestly facing some very good competition too, but I just feel like Edgar Cháirez is going to be able to outdog him, outwork him, and outstrike him, and even mix in some takedowns. I really feel like Edgar Cháirez is a more well-rounded fighter. He's going to have the striking advantage. He's going to be more quicker and more accurate. So I got to favor the side of Edgar Cháirez. I get that CJ Vergara is quick with his hands. He has decent combinations, but he also kind of lacks in the grappling skills. I feel like Edgar Cháirez has a clear-cut grappling advantage. And then in terms of striking, they're very close, but I still think that Edgar Cháirez is going to be the quicker and more explosive fighter on the feet. So give me Edgar Cháirez to beat CJ Vergara. And let's go ahead and look at the odds on this fight, with Edgar Cháirez sitting at a negative 275, Carlos Vergara sitting at a plus 235. I like Edgar. I really do. I think that he has a clear-cut grappling advantage, like I said previously. I think he's going to be able to mix it up, not only in the striking department, but in the grappling department, mixing in some takedowns, garnering some control time. I see some elbows from top position from Edgar Cháirez, and possibly a submission, because of the fact that Vergara doesn't have the greatest grappling defense. I could possibly see a submission, but I don't know. I mean, dude, you got two tough, durable opponents on both sides, so I feel like it's going to be a decision win where Edgar Cháirez walks away with the decision win. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 260, under 1.5 sitting at a plus 190, over 2.5 sitting at a negative 140, and under 2.5 sitting at a plus 110. I think it's live to go over, but honestly, everything's telling me I think Edgar Cháirez could lock up a submission, honestly. I think that he finds a timely takedown. I think he's able to advance positions and find the submission. Give me Edgar Cháirez via submission. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Kevin Boraz. And I love this matchup. I mean, I was going back and forth between these two, and I know you guys are going to get mad at me for this pick, but I'm going with Kevin Boraz for a couple of reasons. I get that Ronaldo Rodriguez is a man on a mission. I mean, in his last fight against Ode Osborne, he showed some absolute grittiness. Like, I don't even understand. He recovered so well after getting tagged by Ode Osborne very early, and it was a nasty right hand that sat him down, but he was able to recover, came back, and ended up winning against an Ode Osborne with the pressure and with the pace and with his grappling skill set. He ended up beating him. And then you have the win over Denny's Bondar, and then you have the win over a Victor Moreno, all these guys, where he had some nice finishes, but ultimately, I gotta go with Kevin Boras for a couple of reasons. One, Ronaldo Rodriguez is prone to getting hit down the center line. He does not move his head one bit off the center line. And on the other side of it, you have Kevin Boras, who, though coming off of a knockout to Alessandro Costa and the loss to Joshua Van, he showed moments in both of these fights. He knocked down Joshua Van in their fight before ultimately losing it because Joshua Van is a savage, ended up coming back. I mean, in both of these fights, he showed moments in both of them. His striking is really, really, really good. Not to mention, he has a long, stiff jab. He likes to strike from the outside. He has a nasty 1-2 straight down the middle and some nice front kicks and knees up the middle. And I feel like that is a huge factor in this fight. I get that Kevin Boras' grappling isn't the best, but I will say against Diaz, he had some moments where he snubbed the takedowns, and I feel like Diaz is a little bit better of a grappler than Ronaldo Rodriguez in terms of strength. Strength-wise, I think that Victor Diaz is stronger, but I feel like Kevin Boras is going to be working on his grappling in the sense of defensively keeping this on the feet, and if he's able to defensively keep this on the feet, he's going to rock Ronaldo Rodriguez. I'm telling you, with the kick, with the knee up the middle, or with the 1-2 straight down the middle. I feel like Kevin Boras is going to finish a Ronaldo Rodriguez. I get that it's hard. I mean, Ronaldo Rodriguez showed tough grittiness with the win over Ode Osborne, and you have a little bit of worry with the side of Kevin Boras in the grappling, but I feel like defensively he can keep this on the feet. He could snub the takedowns of Ronaldo Rodriguez. I think he's going to be able to land the 1-2 straight down the middle, or even a knee up the middle. I see happening. I feel like though Ronaldo Rodriguez has a grappling advantage in this, I think striking wise it's going to be Kevin Boras. I think Ronaldo Rodriguez is a little bit too prone to wanting to get into a brawl with his opponent, and he's not going to be able to do that with Kevin Boras, because Kevin Boras is going to be landing the 1-2 down the middle, and it's going to tag a Ronaldo Rodriguez. So that is ultimately why I'm going with Kevin Boras. And let's go ahead and look at the odds here. With Kevin Boras sitting at a plus 142, Ronaldo Rodriguez, I don't know why it says Luis Rodriguez, sitting at a negative 162. I like Kevin Boras. I'm telling you, the side of Rodriguez, he is so prone to shots straight down the middle, and Kevin Boras has some of the nastiest shots straight down the middle. He sat down Joshua Van. What do you think he's going to do to Ronaldo Rodriguez if he lands that 1-2 down the middle? I feel like he's going to lay him out, honestly. I get that he has that iron Mexican chin, but I mean, he's been touched once, he's been tagged twice, he can get tagged a third time. So give me Kevin Boras to beat Ronaldo Rodriguez. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 375, over 2.5 sitting at a negative 180. Honestly, I'd stick away from the rounds. I think this is going to be an absolute warfare between these two, where Kevin Boras is going to get the better of Ronaldo Rodriguez. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in David Martinez versus Saimon Oliveira. And the pick for me is gonna be David Martinez over Saimon Oliveira. I think that David Martinez, though both of these fighters are kind of unproven, to be completely honest, I gotta go with David Martinez. He had the victory over Xavier Franklin, where he absolutely dominated him and showed me his solid striking. He had the devastating knockout power. He had some nice moments in there. He has that quick, stiff jab that he actually really uses to maintain that distance with his opponent. And he has clean counter-striking abilities, which we saw against Franklin. As Franklin came in, you could see a good counter right, a good counter left a couple of times. I mean, he has very good counter striking abilities, not to mention his nasty high and low kicks. And not to mention, we don't really know about his grappling, but I found a little bit of grappling where he didn't look the worst, to be completely honest. So I feel like his grappling isn't the worst, but he's mainly a striker that's going to try and keep this on the feet, try and outstrike and outwork a Saimon Oliveira, who's going to probably try and look to take him down a couple of times, but it's going to be hard against a David Martinez, who is a stocky brawler that is very tactical and technical. So I got to favor the side of David Martinez. Saimon has the 2 losses, one to Daniel Marcos, which Daniel Marcos is a man on a mission. He's a savage. He is a elite fighter. And then you have the win or the loss over Tony Gravely before that. Not to mention, if you look at these two, how long ago was this? 2 years and 2 months ago, and then 3 years and 1 month. Saimon Oliveira is a inactive fighter. He hasn't fought in 2 years. He tends to turn his back to his opponents. That is a big red flag that you guys do need to know. If you look back at the fight against Marcos or Gravely, he turns his back to his opponents a lot. Not to mention he gets overzealous with his striking, leaving his head wide open for a counter shot. And honestly, he's going to get laid out. He's going to get laid out. Saimon Oliveira is a one-stop shop in the sense that he mainly relies on his grappling. He will literally shoot from across the octagon and just go like this. He won't throw any strikes to really hide it. He'll just go and just rush you full on with his head down. So I believe that David Martinez with an uppercut or a knee up the middle or some nice counter strikes can land on Saimon Oliveira as he's being overzealous in either his striking or even his grappling. And he's going to get laid out, honestly. That's the simplest way to put it. He's an inactive fighter that just is terrible and reckless. So I got to favor the side of David Martinez. And let's go ahead and look at the odds here. With David Martinez sitting at a negative 360, Oliveira sitting at a plus 285. I like David Martinez. I really do. You're going to tell me Saimon Oliveira in the past 2 years has gotten better in the sense of not completely turning around to his opponent and not being overzealous, leaving his chin completely open in the air, and not completely just shooting with no strikes and just ducking his head and running at his opponent? No, I don't believe so. I think that hasn't gotten any better. I think that he's inactive. I think that skill for skill wise, David Martinez is better, though they're both unproven. I think David Martinez is going to show up, show out, and deliver a knockout over Saimon Oliveira. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 250, over 2.5 sitting at a negative 125, under 1.5 sitting at a plus 185, under 2.5 sitting at a negative 105. I like the under 2.5. I think that David Martinez is going to find the counter left or a knee up the middle or an uppercut up the middle and knock out a Saimon Oliveira. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Raul Rojas versus Vince Morales. Another banger. And the pick for me is going to be Raul Rojas. He has been looking absolutely exceptional lately. He has the win over Ari Lang, the win over Ricky Tercios where he submitted him, the win over Terrence Mitchell where he knocked him out, and obviously the loss to Christian Rodriguez before that. But I mean, he has been developing so well. His striking has really started to show up. He's really started to develop his combinations, his quick hands, and he's mixing it up to the body very well. And his quick and high snappy leg kicks. I like Raul Rojas right now. He's developing his striking. His striking's really starting to come together. We already knew his grappling was really well, and he's an absolute savage in that sense. So I feel like I gotta go with Raul Rojas. Vince Morales is no bum, no slouch. This is not going to be an easy competition against Vince Morales. But I still think that Raul Rojas is going to be able to overcome. Vince Morales has lost 2 in a row, one to Elijah Smith and one to Taylor Lapilus, which both of those guys are ultimately very talented prospects on the rise. But Taylor Lapilus did get let go of the UFC, so that is something to mention. But ultimately, either way, those are 2 separate fighters that don't fight like Raul Rojas, and I feel like Raul Rojas is going to be able to outstrike a Vince Morales and land some key takedowns and garner some control time. Vince Morales has has a really good grappling skill set and a really good striking skill set, but I just think that Raul Rojas is better in every single aspect. In terms of striking, he's quicker to the target. He's more accurate to the target. He's able to mix it up to the head and to the body really well. I will say Vinc has some nasty leg kicks, but ultimately, other than that, I feel like Raul Rojas is going to be able to tag him on the feet and be able to mix in some takedowns and garner some control time over a Vinc Morales. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight. With Raul Rojas sitting at a negative 375, Vinc Morales sitting at a plus 310. I like the side of Raul Rojas. I really do. I think that his striking's coming together. I think he's looking a lot more well-rounded, and he's starting to really develop and come into the best version of himself. So I am going with Raul Rojas. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 325. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 180. Under 1.5 sitting at a plus 230. Under 2.5 sitting at a plus 150. I like the overs, and I think it's going to be Raul Rojas winning via decision over a Vinc Morales. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card, which is another banger in Kevin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. This is an absolute banger right here. This one's going to end in a knockout. Somebody's getting knocked out. I am going with Joe Pyfer to knock out Kevin Gastelum. Though, coming off of this win over Burial, he beat him in his own game. I mean, he knocked him out cleanly with an overhand right and beat him in his own game up against the fence in a brawl. And then you have the loss to Jack Hermansson, which isn't even a bad loss. Jack Hermansson is a very talented striker and talented fighter in general. And then you have the win over Abdul Razak Al Hassan, where he submitted him. I mean, Joe Pyfer is somebody who trains with Sean Brady, so you know he has a well-versed grappling game, and he's a very solid striker with devastating knockout power. He has quick, clean combinations. He has nasty inside boxing, like absolutely nasty. He knows how to mix in some elbows with his striking on the inside. He knows how to mix in some knees with his elbows on the inside. I mean, he is absolutely disgusting with that inside boxing. Not to mention, in terms of grappling, he's defensively sound with his strong takedown defense. So I like the side of Joe Pyfer. Though I said that this fight is going to end in a knockout, let's take it to the other side where Kevin Gastelum has never been knocked out. You have the loss to Robert Whittaker, loss to Jared Cannonier, the win over Chris Curtis, the loss to Sean Brady via submission, and the win over Daniel Rodriguez. He is a tough, gritty son of a bitch that has never been knocked out, that is not chinny, that is he's a very skilled and talented fighter. He's going up against the best. He's putting on moments up against the best. But ultimately, he doesn't win against the best. And I feel like Joe Pyfer is one of the best, to be honest. Though having that win against Jack Hermansson, he is a savage with a lot of skill. In terms of striking, in terms of grappling, I feel like Joe Pyfer is going to be able to knock out Kevin Gastelum. And I know it's a shock to a lot of you because of the fact that Kevin Gastelum has never been knocked out and he has a chin. But let's not forget, he's coming to the later end of his career. He hasn't been looking the best. He looked a little bit sluggish in the Daniel Rodriguez fight, though winning that. I mean, I don't know. I feel like at times he gets a little bit overzealous, leaves himself open for counters, and Joe Pyfer is somebody you don't want to do that against. He has great counter-striking abilities, and I feel like he can land the knockout shot. I really do. I'm going with Joe Pyfer via knockout. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight with Joe Pyfer sitting at a negative 300, Kevin Gastelum sitting at a plus 240. I like Joe Pyfer. I really do. I think that he's going to find the counter knockout on Kevin Gastelum because he gets a little bit overzealous, starts throwing a little bit wild and chaotic at times, and somebody like Joe Pyfer, who's able to stay technically sound in his striking, could find that opening and exploit it and knock him out. And I think it's going to happen. Though Kevin Gastelum has never been knocked out, I think he's going to get knocked out this time. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 230. Under 1.5 sitting at a plus 175. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 120. Under 2.5 sitting at a negative 110. I like the under 2.5, to be completely honest. I think somebody's getting knocked out, and I think it's going to be Kevin Gastelum getting knocked out for the very first time. And let's go ahead and run it to the co-main event of the evening in Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. We're talking about fight after fight, banger after banger. Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. Whoever matched this up, thank you. This was a amazing matchup between these two. Manuel Torres and Drew Dober are going to absolutely throw down. And the pick for me is going to be Manuel Torres. Though coming off of the loss to Ignacio Bahamondes, there's a lot to take away from that. Manuel Torres did kind of abandon his game plan, which is kind of a red flag there. But I feel like he is going to learn from that mistake. He's going to be a lot more patient in the sense of not being overzealous and abandoning his game plan when he gets hit with a big shot where I do think that Drew Dober can hit him with a big shot, but I feel like Manuel Torres is, with his length and size advantage, is going to be able to kind of keep Drew Dober at bay. Not to mention he's more explosive and I feel like going to be stronger than Drew Dober in moments. He has the win over Chris Duncan where he submitted him, so he has a very good grappling skill set as well. And the win over Nicholas Mota. I feel like Manuel Torres is a very highly skilled fighter. He made a big mistake. He abandoned his game plan. He's going to learn from it, and I think he's going to deliver a damning performance here against Drew Dober. I really do. I mean, his knockout power is none other. His ability to kind of adapt and change in the sense of striking is none other. Yes, he made a mistake in the Ignacio Bahamondes, abandoned his game plan, and got wiped, but I don't see that happening against Drew Dober here. I really don't. If they enter a slugging warfare, I think it's Manuel Torres going to walk away with it. Drew Dober is no bum, no slouch, though. I mean, he's been up against Gene Silva. Gene Silva's a dog. We've seen what kind of talent he brings to the table. And then the loss to Moicano. Moicano's up there with the best of the best. And then you have the win over Ricky Glenn via left hook. And then the loss before that to Matt Frevola, which is a terrible look, to be completely honest. Matt Frevola isn't the best at all. So that's not the best look. And then the win over King Green, where he did get dropped. That is something I do want to know. Drew Dober has been dropped in multiple of his fights, so his chin is a little suspect. That is something to definitely know. I get that Drew Dober, I will say, has been up against the better competition. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, if you look at it, Gene Silva, absolute dog. Moicano, up there with the best of the best. Ricky Glenn, pretty good, honestly. And then Matt Frevola, mediocre. King Green is a very good fighter. So, I mean, he's been up against a better competition over Manuel Torres, who has been up against Bahamondes, Chris Duncan, Mota, and Frank Camacho. I mean, honestly, they both have been up against really good competition. I favor the side of Drew Dober in terms of more elite prospects or elite fighters, but I still think that Manuel Torres in the pocket will be able to get the better in the exchanges. I also feel as though if Manuel Torres lands, Drew Dober's going out. I mean, he's chinny. He's gotten dropped by multiple fighters in King Green and Mota. I mean, I gotta favor the side of Manuel Torres to beat Drew Dober. And let's go ahead and look at the odds with Manuel Torres sitting at a -125, Drew Dober sitting at a +105. I like Manuel Torres. I really do. I get that he didn't look the best in his last fight, but I think that he's going to overcome that fight. I think he's going to adverse, and I think he's going to put on a great performance here against Drew Dober. And this could also be possibly fight of the night. I mean, this is going to be an absolute war between Manuel Torres and Drew Dober. They're going to be slugging it out on the feet. I just don't believe Drew Dober is going to be able to take the punch that Manuel Torres is going to deliver. Over 1.5 sitting at a +155, under 1.5 sitting at a -185, over 2.5 sitting at a +320, under 2.5 sitting at a -45. I like the under, and I think it's going to be Manuel Torres knocking out Drew Dober. And let's go ahead and run it to the main event of the evening. And if you guys haven't, make sure you guys like and subscribe, and make sure you guys tune into the flock in the description, where I do daily, or not daily, but live streams for members. I do members only shorts, members only videos, so make sure you guys tune in. And we do MMA bets in the Discord group call, so make sure you guys tune into the description below. And let's go ahead and run it to the main event of the evening in Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg. And this is an interesting one that I gotta side with the side of Brandon Moreno. I mean, he is somebody who has been through it all. I mean, he's faced so many of the top in terms of this division. He has the win over Amir Albazi, which I called him to beat Amir Albazi. He's a way better fighter than Amir Albazi. And then the loss to Brandon Royval, the loss to Alexandre Pantoja, who's the champ, and the win over Figueiredo before that. I mean, Brandon Moreno is an absolute savage. He's a very well-rounded fighter. He's a good striker. He's a good grappler. He has nasty combinations. He has nasty high and low kicks. He has quick hands. He mixes it up to the head and to the body. He has strong takedowns. He has quick transitions, tricky submissions. I mean, Brandon Moreno is a check all the boxes type of fighter. He's tough. He's gritty. I mean, I gotta favor the side of Brandon Moreno. Steve Erceg is coming off of 2 losses against Kai Kara France, where he got absolutely starched, and then the loss against Pantoja, the champ, where he actually put on a damn good performance, honestly. A very toe-to-toe performance where he kind of sold in the 5th round and ended up losing the fight, but he put on a damn good performance, to be completely honest. Steve Erceg is no bum, no slouch. If he comes out and puts on the performance that he put on against Pantoja, Brandon Moreno is in for a, honestly, not rude awakening, but a very tough back and forth competitive fight. But if he comes out like he did with Kai Kara France, I mean, he just looked a little bit sluggish, looked a little bit slow, just didn't really look the best version of himself like he did in that Pantoja fight, which is why I got to go with Brandon Moreno. I get that Steve Erceg is no bum, no slouch, but I feel like if we talk about skill for skill, tool for tool, I got to go Brandon Moreno. He's going to have the grappling advantage. He has a very good striking prowess. He's going to be just as good in the striking department as Steve Erceg, maybe even better with the counters. So I got to favor the side of Brandon Moreno. I really do look forward to seeing how Steve Erceg is going to look because of the fact that, I mean, he got starched by Kai Kara France last, but again, the performance before that put on a damn good performance against Alexandre Pantoja, the champ. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight between these two, with Brandon Moreno sitting at a -230, Steve Erceg sitting at a +195. I like Brandon Moreno. Like I said, he has a clear-cut grappling advantage in terms of striking. I think that he's just as good of a striker, possibly even slightly better than Steve Erceg in the striking department with his counters and his ability to mix in his striking with his grappling. So I got to favor the side of Brandon Moreno. Over 1.5 sitting at a -800. Over 2.5 sitting at a -450. Over 3.5 sitting at a -300. Over 4.5 sitting at a -240. I like the over. I like the over 3.5, but also the under 4. Honestly, I'm going to go under 4.5. Under 4.5, sitting at a +190 is crazy work. I think that, honestly, Brandon Moreno is going to be able to work Steve Erceg, and I think that he's going to find the submission finish on Steve Erceg. Give me Brandon Moreno via submission. And if you guys haven't, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of the video in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!